Hey guys, so I have been meat-free for 1 full year. I'm pretty happy about it. I feel pretty proud. So I thought I would answer your guys' questions regarding this transition, etc. Before we jump into it, let me just define what kind of veggie I am. So I am fully vegetarian. I don't eat meat, eggs, fish, anything like that. At home, I eat predominantly plant-based, depending on my mental state. But for the most part, we don't keep any dairy, etc. products in the house. If I'm out of the house or traveling, I will sometimes eat, cheese, dairy, shit like that. But the goal long term is to be fully plant-based. So that's what I'm working towards, and we'll see how it goes. One of the first questions, obviously, is why I wanted to make this change. And there's a lot of reasons that I could sit here and list off, but ultimately it breaks down to I'm trying to live consciously and minimize harm. So I'm trying to do that across the board in how I eat, in how I treat people, how I treat myself. I personally feel like this is the most conscious and least harmful way that I can eat for myself, my health, the planet, animals. There's a lot of argument around whether or not being vegan or veggie is actually that helpful in an environmental way. But for me, I just feel like you may not change the world, but you're changing your world. And I think that this kind of change can generally be really catching for people. Same thing with, being lower waist. If people see you doing something and they see that that's something that's like a positive impact on your life, sometimes people just tend to adopt that thing naturally. So I just feel like this is the best way that I can kind of move forward with my life. And if you don't feel that way, that's pretty fucking fair. And I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about it. The reason I wanted to wait for a while before making this kind of video is because I wanted to make sure that I had a good understanding of what this actually looked like day to day for me, how easy that change was to adopt long term, how it was with traveling, how it was around friends. Like, I wanted to really have a good grasp on the entirety of what that kind of change actually means for your life. And I didn't want to just sit here having, been vegetarian for a month being like, it's great. I understand why this is such a difficult change for people. I'm not going to lie to you and say that this was an easy change for me, because it wasn't. Like, going veggie, but specifically vegan, has been a very, very slow transition for me, and I'm fine with that. So let's get into it. I'm going to answer your questions henceforth. So the next question that was like the most common was how I managed to get enough protein. So when I started to make this transition, I realized that I had spent the majority of like my kind of eating life not being very conscious. I didn't really know what was in my food. I didn't really know what my food consisted of, in terms of like carbs, proteins, fats, stuff like that. I just didn't think about it. Like, I just ate as I wished. So the first thing I kind of decided to do for myself was take a nutrition course. So I took a plant-based nutrition course. If you're wondering which one it is, I can link it down below, but it was through E. Cornell's website. I really, really liked that course. I did feel like there were some things that were perhaps a bit pushy. It's a very, very specific type of nutrition that they're kind of, talking about. That whole course kind of really drives home the idea of not eating a ton of oil, added salt, like just kind of like whole foods, plant-based, like very pure eating. So there were some things that I didn't really relate to as much, but it did kind of touch on, food advertising and the environmental impact, the impact on animals, the impact on our health was a huge, huge, huge portion of that. So I took that course just so that I could have a better understanding of what I was doing and how to maybe best care for myself. A big part of that nutrition course was talking about how we don't actually need as much protein as sometimes is like talked about in the media and different outlets and stuff like that. I personally do believe that. I do believe that in a lot of cases we're actually eating far more protein than we actually need for our body. So I find that I'm able to like operate just fine on slightly less protein than maybe like a typical meat eater would be eating. That said, I don't feel like I actually struggle that much to hit like my protein goals because there just are things that have lots of protein in them, and you can go research that, which I spent a lot of time doing as well. Another thing I did was I downloaded an app to track my meals, and I am not that bitch, okay? I hate that shit. I hate tracking my meals. I hate looking at how many calories I'm consuming and crap like that. I'm just like, listen, man, I don't want to know. The reason I did that is because I wanted to see like how much protein is there in broccoli? How much protein is there in lentils? So I could kind of see like where I'm actually getting my protein from, because a lot of people, if I say protein to you, you think meat. So things like chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds are really easy to add for smoothies. That's how I prefer to eat that kind of shit. I don't like hemp seeds sprinkled on salads. I just can't get down with it. Chickpeas are really easy to add to like soups. Same thing with lentils, different types of beans like that. I eat a lot of soup, a lot of soup. And you know, easy to add to salads, all kinds of shit. So I don't feel like I actually struggle with that portion of the transition. The one thing I can't eat as a protein source is fucking quinoa. I don't know why. It makes me violently ill. Anyways, moving on. A lot of people have asked if I saw any kind of differences when it came to like my health. The main thing, which I wasn't hoping for this or thinking this was going to be a thing, but I sleep significantly better. I've never been a good sleeper. I'm a very light sleeper. I usually would only sleep for like 4 to 6 hours a night kind of thing. I wake up early. I go to bed early, but I don't fall asleep for a really long time. Anyways, I sleep way better now that I don't eat meat, oddly. Aside from that, sometimes meat would make me feel a little bit sick, like it just felt really heavy in my stomach. Red meat specifically would make it more difficult for me to poop in the days following. Don't know what to tell you. But other than that, I don't notice a huge change in, my health since cutting out meat. I will say, when I'm really, really sticking to being fully plant-based, like plant-based out of the house, in the house, everything, I do notice a big change in how I feel. Like I notice that my energy feels better. I don't feel like lethargic throughout the day. And I don't know, I just feel better in a lot of different ways. So I had a few people asking me about like if I gained weight or lost weight. This was never, I just want to start out by saying weight loss was never like a reason for why I wanted to make this change. But I have lost weight since I stopped eating meat. Oh, a lot of people as well, kind of going back to the health thing, have asked if I am like nutrient deficient anywhere, iron deficient, anything like that. I get my blood work done more often than I'd like, and it's not like relevant to my diet. That's not the reason I'm going to get my blood work done, but I just end up having to get it done a lot. Anyways, long story short, I haven't noticed any deficiencies yet. Neither has my doctor, so there is no concern thus far. But that said, it's going to be something I'm always keeping an eye on, just because you do have to be a little bit more thoughtful about what you're consuming. When you're cutting out a huge food group that was generally part of your, daily shit. So, yeah, okay. Someone asked, did you do this as a transition or did you go cold? So for the past, I would say 3 years have been what I would call transitioning, getting used to alternatives. So, kind of slowly over time, what I chose to do was take one thing and get used to that alternative. So the first thing I think I cut out was, meat, but also when it came to being like more plant-based in my house was milk. So getting rid of milk, understanding what plant milks I like the best for different things. So, for smoothies and stuff like that, I like, like almond milk and lighter milks like that, oat milks. For things like overnight oats, like cold stuff that's a little bit sweeter maybe, I like oat milk because I find that that's just naturally sweeter. And then for stuff that's more savory, like maybe I'm making like an Alfredo sauce or something like that, I like to use soy milk. So, kind of getting used to what am I going to use, what works best, all that kind of shit. And then move on to the next thing. So the next thing for me, I think, was like butter, getting used to, cooking with oils, cooking with water, cooking with, vegan butter, different stuff like that. And then just slowly kind of, phasing things out and phasing new things in. So I would say that I have been transitioning for a while, but when it came to eating meat, I did eventually just completely cut it out cold turkey. I wasn't planning to. If I had planned, you best believe I would have been stocking up on frickin' Taco Bell the day before. Okay, I know you can get Taco Bell vegan, but it's not the same for me, okay? I would have planned my life differently. I would have spent like a solid week just like eating such garbage, and then I would have been like, okay, now. But we had gone out for Matt's birthday, which was December 6th. I was eating a steak, and I was looking at something on my phone that was horrifying to my eyes and my sensibilities, and that was it. And I have to say, again, I'm not that bitch. Like, things like that, I don't want to say they don't bother me, but they don't make me that queasy. Like, anytime someone told me something gross about food, no matter what it was, I was just like, okay. Because there is like a huge separation for me. Like, the difference between, a hamburger and a cow, there is a very clear division between those two things in my mind. And I think that that's true for many people. So because I had seen this thing that was just like a little bit too much for me, and I was in the middle of eating a steak at that very moment, I just stopped that day, and that was it. And here we are. Definitely don't pressure yourself into feeling like you're not committed enough, or you're not doing it 100%, so it doesn't matter. It does matter. It's important. Making those kind of decisions is a huge step, and it's something that you should pat yourself on the back for. And I think that it's unfortunate that a lot of the media that we see online surrounding, being vegetarian, but more specifically, unfortunately, vegan, is very militant, very aggressive. When it comes to the, you don't care about animals thing, I just don't understand how people can possibly feel that way about everyone in the world, because ultimately, if you weren't raised vegan or vegetarian, but you are now, I would be surprised if you were to tell me that you didn't give a fuck about animals at all, and you genuinely felt that in your soul, and then when you went vegan or vegetarian, now suddenly you do care about animals. So that kind of argument, really, personally, I just don't jive with. I don't think that that's accurate. I think that there are plenty of people that genuinely love animals so much, but they just eat what they eat, and that's what they grew up eating, and it's hard to change. And I think the arguments surrounding that it's like easy or that it's cheap or whatever, I just think that for you to assume that your experience is the same as 7 billion people's experience is impressively reductive. Food deserts do exist. Meat and dairy is subsidized. There are places where it's just not as accessible. People don't have a car. People don't have transit. It's harder for them to get to these places. I don't know. I'm not of the mindset that, you're a piece of shit if you aren't vegan or vegetarian. I completely understand why it's difficult. And there are a few people asking here, is it easy? In my opinion, no, of course not. I wasn't raised vegetarian or vegan. And because of that, I struggle with it. I struggled with it socially. I struggled with it because if I say to you, picture dinner, still to this day, I picture some kind of meat, some kind of veggie, green beans or whatever, and then potatoes. That's always what dinner is in my mind. So it's hard to kind of transition out of that way of thinking and get used to what you're going to eat and how you're going to eat it. And I don't feel like it was incredibly easy, but I do think if you are wanting to make a change, you'll do that for yourself and you will commit to it, Tons of people asking if I ever crave meat or if I ever felt like I was gonna go back. I wouldn't go as far as to say I crave meat, but there are some things, if I see someone else eating it, I'm like, damn, that used to be so tasty. Or I will every now and again, if I'm in a shitty mood, I'll be thinking about McDonald's cheeseburgers and crap like that. I wouldn't say that I ever really thought that I would go back during this transition, because ultimately it was a decision that I wanted to make. It wasn't something I was being forced into. It wasn't something I was doing because I felt guilty or ashamed or anything like that. It was something I wanted to do. And, you know, the longer it had been that I hadn't eaten meat, the more it became important to me to just kind of continue to power through. So when it had been like 3 months that I hadn't eaten meat, I wasn't going to just like throw away that 3 months by going and picking up like a chicken nugget meal. Chicken nuggets were never really my shit. Chicken wings. Oh, tons of people asking, whether or not Matt is vegetarian as well. So Matt, he's a little bit of a waffler. There have been kind of extended periods where he's not eaten any meat at all. And he's now kind of eating meat again. And in the beginning he was eating meat and stuff like that. I struggled with that a little bit just because like obviously it would have been an easier transition if like everybody around me was also eating like plant-based or veggie or whatever. However, when we cook at home, I don't cook 2 different meals. Like I don't cook meat for him and no meat for me. Matt eats what I cook. If I'm cooking vegan, he doesn't give a shit. Like he's not like, I want meat. Like he doesn't care. I mean, if he does care, he's not fucking piping up about it, I'll say that. Oh, wow, this is such a good question. Someone said, how do you manage to buy the right amount of produce for 2 people without it going bad fast? So, fantastic question. I'm really lucky in that I have like a grocery store like incredibly close to my house. So what I actually do, typically like if I'm eating produce heavy, like specifically when I'm eating like very plant-based and cooking at home a lot, I'm eating almost exclusively produce. So I will usually just pick up produce for, you know, like 2 to 3 days worth of food and then just kind of go back throughout the week. That's not super realistic for a lot of people that work different jobs, have kids, etc. So that aside, I tried to get better about learning, you know, how to keep produce fresher for longer. So whether that's keeping it in the fridge or out of the fridge, there's certain like vegetables and fruits that if you like put them side by side, they actually ripen faster. Fresh herbs and stuff like that, I keep in water in the fridge, like in a jar, like a little flower vase, you know? And that makes them last for like weeks and weeks and weeks. Things like celery, because I like to have like celery and like baby carrots and stuff like that to like snack on. I'll just chop up the celery before, like as soon as I get it, I chop it up into like small pieces and keep it in like an airtight container. And that actually keeps it for a really long time because celery, fuck man, it just goes limp so fast. It is the most disappointing hookup of all time, okay? It's so bad. So I chop it up beforehand and then it's good to go. Tons and tons of people asking whether or not I noticed a difference budget-wise. So I'm not gonna lie to you. At this point in my life, I don't genuinely pay a ton of attention to how much my groceries cost. Financially, I'm very privileged in that way to be able to just kind of, you know, like pick up what I want to pick up and I don't have to worry about it. I would say that the way that I eat veggie or vegan isn't particularly cost effective. I do like using meat replacements every now and again, which are expensive. I like to buy local produce as often as I can just because I feel like it's better for the environment. I like to support local anyways. So I do end up spending probably more on groceries now than, I don't know if I would say I spend more, but I would say I spend similar amounts because I'm not being super conscious about making sure it's like as budget friendly as possible. That said, depending on your location and like the accessibility for you, there are ways to eat you know, vegan or veggie that's a little bit cheaper. Buying in bulk is a big one. So, you know, instead of buying like a little can of like cashews, like going and buying bulk cashews, they're still fucking expensive, let me tell you. So buying in bulk whenever you can. Farmers markets, if you're anywhere near a farmers market, a lot of the times you can get produce for like way cheaper and it's actually a lot nicer than like at bigger box stores. Things like rice, things like beans are typically fairly cheap in most areas. So, you know, there's little things that are not as expensive, but I think that being conscious about food waste as well is a huge one. Making sure that you're freezing food if you can. And like I said, like researching how to keep produce for longer so that you're not creating food waste and also spending a ton of money that you're just like pissing away kind of thing. But I'm definitely not the best resource for that. There are tons of channels and stuff like that out there of people that are like budget friendly vegans and vegetarians. So I definitely would recommend going and checking out their content. So a lot of people are asking if I do meat alternatives. So like, you know, fake chicken, fake beef, stuff like that. So I don't personally love a lot of meat alternatives. I just feel like I haven't been veggie that long, you know? Like the people that are like, it tastes just like chicken. No, bitch, I'm not at that point, okay? Like you can add the same sauce and it's like, yeah, this is like a similar flavor, but like I don't feel like it's the same. The one meat replacement that is like a standby for me is like veggie ground beef. That shit bangs, okay? Like in tacos, in freaking like spaghetti and stuff like that. Oh my God, fuck. It is unreal. And like Beyond Burgers I really like as well, but I don't like cook them at home all the time. So beef replacements I would say are probably the thing that I use the most, but I don't ever buy like chicken replacements. I don't want to rely a ton on meat replacements because I just feel like there are, you know, healthier options. Just because it's vegan, just because it's vegetarian does not make it healthy. I try to opt as much as I can for like whole foods over kind of like alternatives that are like quick and easy. But it is nice to have that kind of stuff like, you know, stocked away in the freezer so that if you want to kind of like bulk up a meal, add some protein, whatever, it's there. Someone said tips for giving up seafood. I can live without red meat and poultry, but struggling here. I was never a seafood person. Can't help you with that specifically, but if seafood is the only thing you can't give up, I'm giving you permission for that to be fine. A lot of people say things like, oh, I could be vegan except for cheese, or like I could be veggie except for bacon or whatever. Then do that. Be veggie except for bacon, be vegan except for cheese. Like I really do feel like, you know, being more conscious is a good decision and the right decision. And if that means that you're still going to be keeping cheese around or fish around or whatever, then do that. And, you know, that may change for you down the road. You might decide to cut that out later on, or you might not. You've lived more consciously and you've reduced harm by cutting out anything that you know is like not helpful for our world together. And I think actually like when I was first learning about, you know, eating more in the direction of plant-based, I was talking to a lot of people that are like vegans, like vegan bloggers and different stuff like that. I was talking to a lot of them, and one of them said to me, I was like, I'm really worried about like this one thing. I think it might have been cheese, but actually that hasn't been that much of an issue for me. I think it was cheese that I'd said, like I was like, oh, like I'm just really struggling because like I want cheese, and she was like, then eat cheese. And I was like what? I can do that? I can make my own rules? Like it was really liberating for me, actually, as like silly as it sounds, because a lot of people do feel like if I'm not doing it completely, then I shouldn't do it at all because like I'm not a real vegan or whatever. Fuck that shit. Fuck that noise. Don't let people online tell you that you're a piece of shit when you're trying to do something right. I would rather sit here and talk about the positive side effects for me, what I enjoy about eating veggie and vegan, rather than telling you why you suck for not doing what I'm doing. For instance, if I got on Instagram stories and showed you guys a plant-based meal that I had made and it looked really fucking delicious and I was like, damn, that was good as hell. Even as a meat eater, you might look at that and be like, cool, I'm gonna try making that. If I got on Instagram stories and I was like, you don't care about animals and you're a piece of shit and you're gonna die because of eating meat and blah, 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 you'd probably be like, fuck this bitch. Tons of people ask me whether or not I'm planning on going cruelty-free. So I am taking her day by day. In terms of going cruelty-free, what I have done at my house is separated all of my cruelty-free stuff that I wanted to keep. Anything that was cruelty-free that I felt like I didn't need to hold on to because it just wasn't a product that I like really, really loved or whatever, I just, you know, gave to friends and family, stuff like that. So separated all my stuff from cruelty-free and non-cruelty-free. The few things that I kept that aren't cruelty-free, I'm just working through, and then like once I kind of am done with it, I find a replacement. But I'm definitely not, I'm not trying to rush that process. I'm not going to go throw out thousands and thousands of dollars worth of makeup and just create more waste for no reason, just so that I can get a pat on the back from the internet. I don't care about that personally. That's a change that's important to me to make, but I'm making it the way that makes the most sense for me and is the most realistic in terms of what's in line with my other morals. So when we're talking about waste and stuff like that, I just don't feel like it's the responsible option to just throw out all my shit. So yes, slowly but surely. And then in terms of sponsorships and stuff like that, I've stopped accepting anything that isn't cruelty-free. This person said I've gone vegan and I feel like I'm never full. So I, again, am lucky in that I work from home. So it's really, really easy for me to just continually snack throughout the day. I don't have to prep a whole ton because like I'm there, like I'm right beside my fridge, you know what I mean? So I do find, and I found more in the beginning, that I have a harder time staying full. Now at this point, if it wasn't for my medication fucking shit up, I don't feel like I struggle with that quite as much. If you're not a breakfast person, I'm sorry, but that might have to change. Like I never liked breakfast. I was never a breakfast type of person. I was just like waiting for lunch to happen. But I really did have to start eating proper breakfast. So things like eating like oatmeal in the morning, that's a complex carb. It's going to, you know, keep you fuller for a little bit longer. So I try to eat stuff like that in the morning and try to eat something that's a little bit more calorie dense so that I'm fuller for longer. And I find that that helps me throughout the whole day. And I think also not feeling bad about eating a larger quantity of food. If you're cutting out meat and even dairy, those are huge in terms of calories. Like that's a very large amount of calories that you're cutting out. So you need to replace that with something. So if you are just taking meals that you once had with meat and just removing the meat from them, that meal could be like 70 calories now. So stuff like that, it's important. It's important to make sure that you're actually replacing that. And that's why I do find those apps are a little bit helpful to kind of, you know, understand like how many calories are in things, where you need to add more, and just being conscious to make sure that you're actually hitting that calorie goal daily. Someone said, is it not discouraging whenever you eat out or with many people to have to eat something else? Sometimes. I would say sometimes. Now at this point, it's not as bad for me because it's just been so long that like I'm used to going to, you know, like I know what I'm going to get at all of the restaurants that I'm going to with my friends for the most part. I would say the one thing that's kind of just like, is that I can't share food with people because I'm a big food sharer. I love ordering like a bunch of different shit and like all of us kind of sharing. That's like my favorite way to eat. So I would say that kind of is socially a little bit weirder because I wish that I could like share food with people. But you know, in those kind of circumstances, like I try to bring my friends and my family to like veggie restaurants and vegan restaurants and, you know, then we can all share. Had a lot of people asking about go-to meals. In the morning, I drink a lot of smoothies. Overnight oats is like a huge one for me. I like overnight oats because they keep me full for a really long time. And they also can be adapted in so many different ways. Like you can add like whatever kind of fruit you want. You can add different seasonings to make it taste different, whatever. Like, so I really like making overnight oats. Avocado toast. Sometimes I'll do toast with like peanut butter, bananas, and like strawberries on it. It's so good. So that's like kind of like my breakfast go-tos. For lunch, I do eat a ton of soup. And there's a few reasons for that. The first being, I really fucking like soup, man. I think it's like an underrated meal. Anyways, I love soup, but also soup is nice because you can add like a ton of veggies that you might not normally like. Veggies that are starting to go bad in your fridge, might not be as like crisp or whatever. And things like lentils, chickpeas, all that kind of like good protein source. And it keeps well as well. You can freeze it, you can keep it in your fridge for quite a while. So I feel like soup is like a really, really good option for me for like lunches and stuff like that. I wish I could tell you that I ate salads, but I just don't. I just cannot. I just don't. I can't get down with it. Like the salads that I like to eat are salads that might as well not be salad, you know? Like there's so much shit on them that is unhealthy that it's now become virtually just dressing, and there's a whisper of lettuce in there. So other things that I like for lunch, I like roasted veggies, and I'll do like roasted chickpeas and do like a cashew sauce with that. Let's see what else is on my list. Oh yeah, I did actually have one salad that I liked. It was the salad that has like kind of like a maple dressing and then like roasted butternut squash. It was really good. Oh yeah, chickpea wraps. So I do sometimes wraps with, like I mash up chickpeas, like as if it's like a tuna fish salad, and put in like celery and green onions and like vegan mayo and pepper and a little bit of salt. And then I put like bruschetta in there and spinach and alfalfa sprouts, and I do a little wrap and I put it on my little pan and warm it up. And that's what I'll sometimes do for lunch. Dinner, fucking spaghetti. I can't contain myself, okay? I love spaghetti so much. It's like my absolute go-to. Like when I'm like, I can't be fucking bothered to like even commit to getting up, still, spaghetti is a standby for me. It's so easy. It's so delicious. I love it in my mouth. There you go, spaghetti. And with that one, that's where I will add usually like that fake ground beef. Falafels. Falafels is if I'm like committed. Like if I'm gonna make falafels at home, I'm like peak housewife level shit, okay? Because otherwise that's like way too much commitment. So falafels I'll sometimes do. I like to add zucchini so they're not as dry. And then like Greek salad with that, tzatziki, brown pita. I make tzatziki at home too with like vegan yogurt. It's so good. Another one that I like doing is like a bowl that has, I do roasted sweet potatoes with rosemary, garlic. That's it. Rosemary and garlic, salt and pepper, obviously. And I have that as like a mash on the bottom of the bowl. And then I do like peas and then roasted broccoli and cauliflower and then some chickpeas. And then I usually do like some kind of like nice, delicious garlic sauce over top. Garlic, oh, buddy, comes in clutch in every way. Like it's a wonder that I ever get sick because I add such exorbitant amounts of garlic to things. It's horrifying. I'm single-handedly keeping the garlic industry afloat. Ooh, yeah, fuck man, I eat a lot of sweet potatoes, I guess, when I'm eating like legit. So another thing I'll do for dinners is like loaded sweet potatoes. So I'll cut my sweet potatoes in half and then like hot dog wise, and then bake them. And then I'll just kind of scrape them up with my fork, and then I'll put like a bunch of different shit in there. So chickpeas, I made this dressing that was like, it was like cashews, cilantro, lime. Fuck, that was so good. And jalapeno was in there, and I like blended it up in my little blender and drizzled that over top, damn. And then I made like a tomato salsa for that as well. It sounds so weird, but it's like you're just putting together like all these like veggies. Ooh, shepherd's pie, damn. Shepherd's pie, which you can do with or without like a meat replacement. You don't have to, like you can do lentils and crap like that. So vegan shepherd's pie. Cauliflower tacos is a big one in this house. So we would usually just do like I'm not like a lettuce taco bitch, okay? So a regular taco shell. Cauliflower, which we like batter and then like toss in like a hot sauce. And then, same shit you always put on tacos. Salsa. I'll sometimes get like that bagged, like shredded coleslaw veggies kind of thing. And then just like make a slaw out of like usually like vegan mayo, lime, and Cholula. Have that as a little drizzle. And then for sides, I like making like cucumber salads. I like doing roasted garlic potatoes with like lemon pepper. Fuck, so good. Roasted carrots, Brussels sprouts, all that kind of stuff. So this is gonna be a fucking long video. So those are some of my go-to meals. If you're wanting to transition, you're in the middle of a transition, or you're just wanting to reduce consumption of like animal products in any way, I'm gonna leave all my favorite like blogs and YouTubers and stuff like that down below in terms of like where I get like inspiration for recipes from. A lot of people asking if I take any supplements. No, I don't currently. But if something changes in the future and I need to, then I will. Oh, okay. This person asked, how do you talk about your decision without coming off as judgmental, especially at meals? I don't generally need to talk about it. Like beyond being like, I don't eat meat, like that's pretty much as far as the conversation needs to go most of the times. But the other thing is that I'm not judgmental towards people that eat meat, so it's not that hard for me to not be that, because I just don't feel that way. Like I completely understand why people eat meat. I understand why it's hard to cut out. I understand that just because it's easy for me, or like easier now, I should say realistic, just because it's realistic for me and my lifestyle and my budget and my accessibility and all that kind of stuff, doesn't mean that it is for everyone else. And I also had some people asking how I deal with people being judgmental towards me. Luckily, this isn't something I have to deal with massively. My family's pretty like, okay, whatever about it. Matt's doesn't care. My friends don't care. Like, it's not something that people like pick on me for or try to, whatever. Every once in a while, there will be like a rogue grandma that's like, listen, like, you don't need to cut out eggs. Like, where do you get your protein from? But generally speaking, I feel like the people in my life are pretty respectful of my decision. And yeah, that's it. I'm I'm fine to sit there and have a conversation with you about protein. Get back to me in 10 years and see if I feel the same way. And that's it. So thanks so much, guys, if you stuck around. And if you guys have any questions that I didn't answer, I can answer them down below. Try and get back to you. Bye.